Before this video gets started, I wanted to again mention that I finally got my second channel up and running. I'll be posting different kinds of videos there. I really want to get things going on it, so go check it out and subscribe. The link's in the description. Also make sure to leave your feedback too if you can. And I should mention that channel is going to be on the side, so nothing is going to be changing with these videos. And with starting up two separate channels, I haven't had a lot of free time. If you're in a similar time crunch and haven't had time to read books, but you want to, then the solution is Blinkist, who's the sponsor of today's video. And they may be the sponsors, but I really never have seen a better app to read on, because they have great audiobooks and even some written by guys like Bill Russell, Ray Allen, Dwayne Wade, and Derrick Rose. And you can either read these or listen to them podcast style. And I think my favorite thing about it is if you really don't have time to read, but are looking to listen to stimulate your mind, they have these things called blinks. And these are books that are condensed down in 15 minutes that you can either read or listen to, and get all the key points and topics from these books. And there's over 3,000 blinks like this to choose from. So for all those reasons, I'd highly recommend Blinkist. The full membership is $99 a year, or a little over $8 a month. But it's better because the first 100 people to go to Blinkist.com/sweat are going to get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out. The trial is 100% free, and you'll have the opportunity to cancel at any time within that week. And you'll also get 25% off the full membership if you decide to do so. So definitely go check them out and use my link to get the best offer. Shout out to them for the sponsor, and now let's get into this video. We looked at 6 times players talk trash and instantly regretted it, but now we're looking at 10 more. 10 times players got feeling a little too confident and started to talk trash to some all-time greats. And pretty soon after, they realized they made the wrong decision. So let's get into it, with the first involving DeShawn, STEVENSON, and LeBron James. By this point in 2020, while we haven't heard DeShawn Stevenson's name in a while, as we know, LeBron's still one of the best players in the world. He was one of the best in the world back in 2008 too, when the rivalry between these two first started. The whole thing started when LeBron said something to former player Drew Gooden about how DeShawn was getting a lot of hype that year, and he didn't think he deserved it because he really didn't think he was that good of a player. Well, Drew told Stevenson, and things heated up from there. Some time passed, and the Wizards and the Cavs just so happened to meet up in the 2008 playoffs. And this is where things got out of hand, and where Stevenson would almost instantly regret calling LeBron James overrated, seeing the events that followed. Because LeBron responded to that by saying, "You saying something to me is like Soulja Boy saying something to Jay-Z." So in game 1, when given the opportunity, DeShawn swung at LeBron's head when going for a block, and that got him a flagrant foul and definitely raised the tensions between the two. DeShawn then followed that up by bringing Soulja Boy to game 3 in Washington and had him wear his jersey, which was a dumb move because obviously James was gonna follow that up with doing something with Jay-Z, and he did. He got Jay-Z to make an entire diss song about DeShawn. So LeBron got the upper hand there, and if by that point DeShawn didn't regret trash talking LeBron, I'm sure he did when LeBron dominated that series, averaging 39-7 and knocking them out of the playoffs in 6 games. I will say though, this rivalry did reignite, and Stevenson did get payback on LeBron in 2011 when he helped beat him in the 2011 finals as a part of the Dallas Mavericks. But either way, since then he still ended up regretting his decisions about starting stuff with him in the first place, saying, "As black men, we have to be together and uplift each other. We both did the same things, and now that I look back as I'm older, it's like basically we were both making fools of ourselves." OJ, MAYO, and Michael Jordan. This is one of the more popular stories of trash talk backfiring out there, and it happened in 2006. OJ was attending one of Jordan's camps with a bunch of other college players, but OJ was the only high school player there. And at the time, he was by far one of, if not the best high school player in the country. So they're playing scrimmages in front of all the other campers. Jordan's team wins a game, then OJ's team wins a game. And that's when OJ started talking. He started going at Jordan and getting in his face, but that was when Michael quickly told all the other campers to clear the gym. And MAYO would instantly regret his decision, because MJ looked him in the eyes and said, "Okay, now let me handle my business." So they started another pickup game, and from that game on, Jordan tore him apart. He got multiple stops on defense, backed him down and hit fadeaways on offense, and told him he better start screaming for his mom. Then continued to lead his team to a victory and pulled OJ to the side and said, "Listen, young fella, let me tell you something. You may be the best high school player in the world, but I'm the greatest ever. Don't you ever disrespect the greats like that." OJ thought he was big and tough and giving MJ a run for his money. He was trying to earn his respect, but at the end of the day, Jordan ended up teaching him a lesson lesson that he'd never forget. Michael Jordan and Derrick Martin. And speaking of that Michael Jordan story, that brings up this one. You've probably never heard of this guy named Derrick Martin, but he played on the Grizzlies back in the 90s. You've also probably never heard of him because his most notable moment from being in the NBA was being on the wrong side of a Michael Jordan trash talking story that went like this. The Grizzlies and the Bulls were playing and MJ was having an off night. He was shooting 4 for 16 with only 10 points and 10 minutes left to play in the fourth. Martin's running down the court past the Bulls bench, looks at MJ and says, "Hey Mike, it's not falling tonight, is it?" Then right on the spot, Michael Jordan stands up, checks himself in the game with 6 minutes left, goes up to Derrick and says, "Little man, I told you not to trash talk me," and proceeds to score 19 points in the final 6 minutes, finishing with 29 on the night, which brought the Bulls back and gave them the win in one of the best trash talking revenge stories out there, in only a way Jordan could do it. Then we have the story of Draymond Green trash talks Tim Duncan, and Draymond said this was in his rookie year. By this point, he had always trash talked all of his opponents, so nothing was different for him when he lined up next to Tim at the free throw line. He started going at Tim Duncan with some words, and he said Duncan just stared at him, which made Draymond feel uncomfortable, so he just kept talking, and Tim just kept staring. So he said from that point on, he realized that he probably shouldn't be trash talking Tim Duncan, and that it was the first and last time he was ever gonna do it for 3 possible reasons. 1 was because he wasn't talking back because he just had no respect for him, or 2 was because he wasn't gonna talk back because that's just who he was, or for 3 because of both. So basically, Tim Duncan just destroyed his confidence that night without even saying a word. I mean, you'd think if some random player tried to stare down Draymond like that, it wouldn't have had the same effect. But because Tim is who he is, it did. Then we have the story with J.R. Ryder, Kevin Garnett, and Michael Jordan. The year was 1995, so it was pretty much peak Michael Jordan, and it was KG's rookie season. J.R. had been playing pretty good the past 2 seasons, averaging about 20 a game for Minnesota. So they're now playing the Bulls, and Ryder has 24 going into the 4th quarter. JR knew though to stay quiet in this situation, but him and KG go to walk back on the court to start the 4th. MJ standing right there and KG starts saying, "Keep going at him, he can't guard you, serve him." And Ryder tried to tell him to stay cool, calm down, but KG keeps going. He says, "I don't care about him, keep going at him, you're too strong for this dude." MJ stands straight up, puts his hands on his hips, and stares them both down for 15 seconds straight. JR looks back at him and says, "Hey Mike, he's a rookie, he don't know how things go. He doesn't know the rules of the game, he's just excited." Jordan says, "Oh yeah, oh really, okay." Now keep in mind here, the Wolves were down 2 at this point, but according to KG, MJ scored the quickest 17 points he'd ever seen, and just like that, they were now down 25 points. Garnett said he got back to the bench exhausted because it felt like they were on defense every possession of the quarter. He looked at JR and said, "Hey man, I'm sorry, that one's my bad." Ryder said, "It's cool, just shut up next time." Then MJ walked by and said, "What's wrong? What's wrong, young fella? Damn, you guys done?" So KG almost instantly knew he messed up, and obviously that didn't stop him from talking trash in the future, but it was definitely the last time he talked trash to Michael Jordan. But apparently J.R. Ryder didn't learn his lesson here, because we established that he was a pretty good scorer, not scared to go up some of the best. So in 2000 he gets traded from the Hawks to the Lakers, and goes from averaging 20 a game in Atlanta to playing behind Kobe Bryant in his 5th season. And ever since then, both himself and Kobe would go back and forth talking to each other all practice long. But one day it got too much and JR said to Kobe, "You know, don't get it twisted, I'm a star too, and I used to give you buckets." Kobe says, "Man, you really think you could take me? Alright, after practice, me and you one-on-one." But Phil Jackson couldn't wait, and he cleared practice on the spot so that they could play a game. And as we know, nobody beat Kobe one-on-one. All of his teammates from that day say that the 22-year-old Kobe Bryant gave him everything. Dunks, up and unders, crossovers, pull-ups, to the point where everyone from the sideline was waving white towels around, yelling at JR to be careful for what he wished for. And apparently it got so bad that JR had to quit and say no more. So I'm sure he instantly regretted ever calling out Kobe Bryant. And speaking of trash talking stories that went hilariously bad, that brings us to this one involving Kevin Hart and James Harden. Hart's obviously not a player that talked trash and regretted it, but it has to be mentioned. It was the game in 2017 when the Rockets were playing Philly, aka Kevin Hart's team. So he was sitting courtside and Harden was off the entire 1st quarter. So Kevin starts talking trash saying, "You know why you're off? Because you're in my city, your beard stinks, I hate you, I hate your calves, I think you got butt shots." All James responded with was, "I'm gonna cook you." And Kevin said, "You gonna cook me? Well, put me in a pot because I'm ready to be cooked." And he messed up there because after a poor 1st quarter, Harden finished the game with 51 points and the Rockets won by 30. But Kevin said with about a minute left, Harden's dribbling the ball down the court, stares Kevin Hart in the eyes and says, "Go ahead, tell your team what you did to them." And for as bad as that went, you think he would have learned his lesson, but in 2018, it happened again with Dwayne Wade during the playoffs. Him and Iverson were both talking trash to Wade all game long, but after having a great game, Wade would hit the game-clinching shot to close out the game, turned to both Kevin and Iverson, and had a few words of his own for them. Then in both the post-game interview and conference, he said Kevin Hart was the reason that he had such a good game that night. Lance Stephenson and LeBron James. This one of course came from the 2014 playoffs, the same series that Lance blew in LeBron's ear. And as we remember, that was Stephenson's big year, and that was that series that he was doing everything he could to get under LeBron's skin and try to derail him. Trash talking, blowing in his ear, annoying LeBron the entire series, and that eventually led to James finally showing signs that Lance was getting to him, and he started to talk trash back to him. So Lance called that a sign of weakness, which was a mistake, because the Pacers won the first game of that series, but lost the next 3. And when they were finally down 3 games to 1, Lance admitted that he regretted all the trash talk he did, because he said it distracted the team from their real goal and that they just had to play basketball. But they still lost the series in 6 games. So I'm sure he still regrets all that talking he did, but years later he did say that he doesn't regret blowing in his ear. Paul Pierce and Al Harrington. And this one's a short and simple one that instantly went into effect. Now Pierce has made a career out of silencing crowds and hitting clutch shots when they mattered most. During the 2003 playoffs though, Al Harrington wasn't buying it. The Celtics were down 2, Pierce had the ball on the final possession, and Harrington just kept telling Paul to shoot it. Pierce said something right in his face before pulling up and hitting the shot right in front of him and winning the game for the ultimate revenge. Gary Payton and Michael Jordan. We got another Jordan story. So in Gary Payton's rookie season, he was going up against the Bulls in the preseason, and at the time he didn't understand that preseason games weren't serious. So he's going at BJ Armstrong, talking trash to him, running past the Bulls bench, yelling at MJ, staring guys down, and he finished with 19 points, feeling great. Then you fast forward to the first time they play the Bulls in the regular season, and Payton's feeling real confident after that preseason game. Before the game, everyone's shaking hands, but MJ won't shake Gary's. He turns to BJ Armstrong and says, "Leave the effing rookie to me." The game starts and Jordan goes on to score 6 or 7 times in a row, and within the first few minutes, Payton's in foul trouble and didn't really play much more at all after that. So he finished the game with 0 points and like 8 minutes played, while Jordan ended up with 33. He walks to the Sonics bench after the game with everyone staring at him, goes to Payton and says, "That you talk in the preseason? This is the real shit right here. Welcome to the NBA, little fella." It was clear that Jordan wasn't fazed at all by Gary Payton and felt 0% threatened by him. But he doesn't care who it was. If anybody stepped up to him and tried to talk, he was gonna shut them up like most NBA legends do. But that's gonna wrap things up. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Don't forget to check out and subscribe to my second channel. Links in the description, and I'll catch you next video.